Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach, mates. While Thomas and I, our hamstrings are just hanging on, unlike most of the AFL SuperCoach players. We have got absolute injury carnage, which normally, to be honest, we always get one of these rounds in a year. Normally, it's sort of about the 2 month mark. But after just two rounds, well, three if you count opening round, a
Yeah.
lot of our teams are very, very sore and injured. So we're going to help guide you through sort of what to do with some of the popular players who've copped injuries. So as per normal, I am joined by Thomas. How are you going, Thomas?
Yeah, hamstrings intact. As you said, unlike most of the AFL, well, I guess we'll talk about it as the episode wears on about maybe some of the reasons why it may be the case. I know your boys had a bit of a bye, so no hamstrings damage there, but I know St Kilda, as per usual, gave their supporter base a near heart attack after almost butchering a 40-point lead.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as we say, it's a St Kilda way, so I guess you can't can't get worse than that. But no, good to get a win on the board, and hopefully that builds a bit of confidence into the season and gets our season off and rolling. But as we said, we'll go through the teams. We got this week. We'll focus on the community team, my team. But before we get started, Nathan, before we bring up the community side to start off proceedings, how did you fare in this week? I know you got shafted by injuries, particularly you had Milan Murdoch from the start. But how did you fare overall this round?
Yeah, well, I thought I was going all right. I thought I was going all right after sort of that Friday night game. You know, I had Bont go huge, 141. Ended up putting the captaincy on him, and then Saturday and Sunday were just absolute injury carnage. I guess the one consolation for my side is that a lot of people already had Petracca and Rozee anyway. So I guess I'm in the same boat as a lot of other people there with with having to probably move them on, I would say. The one that really hurts, I think, is Murdoch, who, in case you haven't heard, has a hamstring strain. I think he played with it in the last quarter. Now, luckily, I didn't bring him in last week. I actually had him before his first game, so dodged a Josh Glenn rule there. So yeah, it's going to be painful for me. But I only scored the 1709, which, as I said, I was a bit disappointed with, considering the fact that I had 20 players on the field. And yeah, unfortunately, just got copped with Rozee and Petracca going down injured. I guess Petracca scored 86, so whilst it's about half of what he has been scoring, I guess you'll probably take that. I think Rosie's the one that's going to hurt in the long run, just because I'm not quite sure about sort of the top brass of defenders. But yeah, otherwise, I think everyone else is sort of, coming along quite nicely. My side. As I said, I did have Murdoch. I was looking forward to his price rise, but it's probably not going to happen. Dev Robertson, again, just starring at the Eagles. I think Flanders has really picked up at St Kilda. Jack Sinclair's just doing what he's doing. The other one that I'm a bit annoyed with, and perhaps I should have taken your feedback last week, Thomas, was Caleb Sarong.
Oh yeah.
So I
Did you get
only scored the 68
no.
last week. He did get tagged.
Who did you bring him in for? Or did you have him from the start?
Golden.
That's a tough one. Tough pill to swallow.
So to trade out Gordon, who was averaging about 120 odd, and to get in Sarong after his 150 and he scores 68. Yeah, not ideal, but again, I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of other people. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna have to wear that decision. But yeah, otherwise, looking forward to getting Nick Dacos back this week. Hopefully Degoe tomorrow night. On Friday night can go gangbusters. But yeah, I think this week for me, it's just going to be working out what to do with Rozee and Petracca. I think I'll just keep Murdoch because he's only 99,000. I think I can cover him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for Rozee especially has to go. Petracca, I think 6 weeks is probably too long to keep hold of him, even though I think he will be probably a top 6 forward at the end of the year by average.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just carnage for my side at the minute. So I guess I'm going to be listening in as much as everyone else as we try and figure out what to do.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. I guess everyone's got Rozee and Rozee and Petracca, and I guess Nate's probably had a one up on everyone that decided to bring in Murdoch a week early. But as we said, that's the risk that you run with these base or with these rookies in general. But without further ado, we'll switch over to the community side, which is doing better than my side, that's for sure. Thanks to you guys on socials who are voting away on trades. We scored 1,800, which I guess we'll take. I don't know if this is optimized for now. Hasn't been quite changed, but we definitely didn't have the captain. Oh no, had the VC on Bont and Pelly on obviously Friday night, which popped off. I think Bont's one that you probably should have had from the start. Yes, he was priced at 700k. Yes, people thought you could get him 100k cheaper, but at the end of the day, the guy's a machine. There's probably reasons why certain players are doing better than others at the point in time with these new rules, but Bont's just been Bont. Crazy talk. I think you got to get him in ASAP. But backline, we'll try and rattle through this and not drag these on for too long. But Jack Sinclair does Jack Sinclair things. I think, as we said last week, is a monopoly on that half backline now with Naz pushing to the midfield. I think, having said that, look, I think Naz is going to benefit from playing some halfback as well to maybe void the tag, but I don't think that affects Sinclair at all. I think from now on in, we're going to see really, really consistent scores from Sinclair. Rozee, obviously, he's one of the number one trade-out targets. It was a really bad injury. I think I didn't see the game, but it was almost like he knew
ripped it off the bone.
Yeah,
he ripped his hamstring off the bone.
Yeah, he said he couldn't feel the knee as well, which is never ever a good sign. So just trade him out. There's no point holding him. He's going to be out for a while. Dacos had the bye. Windsor's one that's been really disappointing. I think. Yes, he's got the midfield role, but I think with Melbourne, just with games they're not going to do well in, he's going to suffer. 53 is not the end of the world, like it's not a 30, but I think he's one that's going to be a trade target perhaps next week, if not this week. But I think, next week be the aim to get rid of him from a premium and use him as a stepping stone, as much as he hasn't made much money at all. But if you have the money, just get rid of him. Selwood, pretty impressive. He's probably one rookie that I know a lot of people couldn't fit in with maybe the structure, but he's one that's been really impressive. Lockie Jark's impressive. Bulldogs are on a tear at the moment. So you can't go wrong with those defenders, that's for sure. But before we move on to, as we said, we're kind of going to flip between my team and the community team based on position. And then we'll talk about some trades as well. But moving on to my team, Sinclair, Jordan Clark. He's 119 is good, but definitely frustrating because he was on 50 at quarter time. I think the thing with Clark, you got to understand, I think as a previous owner last year, he never consistently will get these 130s, 140s. He might pump out 50 a quarter and then slow down, but I guess you're paying up for that consistency. He's never going to really pump out a shit score unless he's been tagged. So he's one that you can always just ever rely on. He's got that monopoly down there with Luke Ryan kind of in and out of the side as well at the moment. I traded out Caniglio to Joe Fonte for a bit of cash as well, and Fonte looked impressive. Having said that, Cogs goes out and scores a ton, which is definitely frustrating. But Fonte kind of assured my backline a little bit, considering I'm probably going to get rid of Windsor next week. And Fonte, looks really impressive. Plays your mob this week, so should score okay with how leaky your forward line can be, Nathan. Windsor, look, as I said, he should be gone next week. And then Lockie Jarks for me, and Dan Houston coming back this week is going to be a big plus. I think for me, this was a week to have. I think I scored around that 1,700 something. So it went down in rank significantly, but I think I had Houston, Walsh, Tanner Bruin on the bench. So the big hitters on the bench as well. So can't complain too much. But what are your thoughts initially? I'll throw it back to you, Nathan, with regards to Rozee. I mean, I've got him in the midfield at the moment because I brought in Fonte. But if we go back to the community side, obviously, the majority of the people in the SuperCoach community are going to have Rozee in the back line. What are your thoughts on trade options for him? Because obviously you can probably go down to a rookie and utilize that money elsewhere. But what are your thoughts initially? Because you've got him as well with regards to trading out Rozee.
Yeah, well, I'm just having a look here now, and Rosie's the most traded out player from my side. Obviously, if you've got SuperCoach, Plus, or your Herald Sun or Code Sports subscriber, you get access to that stuff. So Dan Houston's the most popular player that's traded in that's not in my side. So I'm guessing based on that, I'm guessing most people are going Rozee to Houston, which I don't mind, but being a Collingwood supporter, I guess there's always a danger that, Josh Dacos goes back there and, chips in with the kickouts and whatnot. But I think Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe coming back this week, I think that could actually help him because I think he's been playing a bit taller than what he has been. And as much as I think he's a good defender, I don't think that really suits his role. So I think with Moore and Howe both back this week, I think Houston could be a really good trade option.
So you don't just to butt in, sorry Nathan, just to butt in. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on our Twitter kind of comments and DMs with regards to what to do with Houston as a very popular trade. So you actually think that Moore and Howe will help him? Because I know that on the flip side, people have been saying, look, you bring in two experienced defenders like a Moore and a Howe that are quite aggressive, and they're saying that it might take away that ability that McRae's kind of given, or the freedom that McRae's given Houston to be that distributor off halfback.
Yeah, well, I think it's only going to help him because I think Moore and Howe are in the side purely to defend, and I think their job will be to get the ball into the hands of guys like Houston off the halfback flank. And obviously, even though he had a down year last year, he's still one of the best kicks in the league. So, they say the old saying that, form is temporary, class is permanent. I think that Houston's class is starting to show. It's just whether or not, they want the ball in his hands a lot. I know Craig McRae has mentioned that he wants the ball in Houston's hands to take advantage of his kicking. But yeah, I think that Moore and Howe coming back in, I think it really straightens up that back line. And I can't see how that's not going to help him. Because yeah, as I said, there were times last week where he was manning up on one of those three tall Adelaide forwards, and that's not what you want your prime mover off halfback to be doing. So I think with Moore and Howe back in there, I think he can really be released off that halfback flank. As I said, the only problem I have is Josh Dacos. But I can't see Moore and Howe impacting him too much. Because I think their job will be just to get the ball to Houston. And he can do his creative stuff. So, I can understand where people are coming from, but I look at it the other way and go, I just think it frees him up a lot. Houston.
Yeah, sorry. Look, Houston, I think he'll be almost a number one trade target. I know in the community side on Twitter, I posted the trades for this week, and they both involved Houston and Josh Worrell. Worrell from Adelaide, that is. I think he's another really good option if you already do own Houston. I think yes, you can side swap to Jordan Clark or Whitfield or Lockie Ash. Lockie Ash is another one, but I think they're on there by the Giants. I could be wrong. No, they're by next week. Yeah, I wouldn't get Ash now. He's one I'd probably avoid. But, Ash is an option if you want to go him the week after. But, yeah, look, I think budget-wise to actually make money out of this trade, I'd say Houston or Worrell's another option. I'd definitely go Worrell. I really like what I've seen from him injury aside. He had that corky or whatever calf or whatever injury he had against the Dogs and came back on and still scored 120. So, he's in a very similar situation. Houston gets a lot of the ball. I was at the game live when Adelaide play your mom, Nathan. So, he's one that is, just gets a lot of the ball. Rory Laird's gone for 1 to 2 weeks as well. So he could be just the guy that dominates off halfback. And I think if you already have Houston, I know I've got him in my personal side. I think Worrell's a really good option if you don't, own a Cherry or someone we'll talk about later through DPP. But I think out of general conversations, Dane Zorko's another one I've heard the name of. I just don't like the age profile and the injury risk that he probably entertains. He's going to score well against us naturally with how much we give up to halfbacks. But yeah, look, I think if you want to make money out of this, Houston and Worrell are to go. But yeah, I don't. If you want to inside swap straight to Zorko, I think he's probably your next best bet. But moving on to the midfield, so the SuperCoach SC Mates team, Bontempelli, look, get him in. I think he's got the bye this week, so thank fuck for my personal team because he went absolutely bananas again. But I think he's almost the number one priority for next week. So Operation Get Bontempelli, I think is next week. If you don't have him, look, I think he's just too good not to own. I don't think it's worth waiting the potential for him to move down now. He just showed that he can score super well, super consistently. Zach Butters, redeemed himself big time. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Rozee at the side now for the foreseeable future because, Butters could cop a tag more often than not. Dacos obviously had the bye. Caniglio, he's frustrating because I got rid of him in my personal side and kept him in this side and he scored 102. Yes, it was against our mob, so we probably leak a lot of more SuperCoach points. But I think in the long term, will I have Cogs there? Probably not. He just has not the best role in that kind of hybrid high half forward, pushes into the midfield as an extra kind of vibe. So, look, I wouldn't blame you if you did trade him, but he's going to stay there for a little bit longer to make a bit more cash. Parrish is one that I don't know how much Eston game you watch, Nathan. He's been really disappointing, I think, as the potential that we all thought Parrish had. Yes, he's an accumulator, but they just look at a shell of themselves realistically, Eston. They look slow and sluggish and what have you. So, look, I wouldn't blame if you click the rage button this week for Parrish, but I think he's probably the least of everyone's concerns with the amount of injuries everyone's got, that you can probably hold on to him. But I think it is frustrating that a lot of people got suckered into this. Hayden Young's injured, Parrish is out of form, Cogs isn't almost there kind of thing. So you'd almost want those rookie guns and rookies, and that was an easy way to get to Bont. And I know a big reason why a lot of people ended up not going Bont was to basically go down that mid-price route. So there's one to think about for next time. Obviously, Bruin, Sam Grills wasn't that great. Jager Smith had the bye, so the rookies were non-relevant. But super consistent midfield. I'd be happy with that. Noah Anderson as well, actually. He's would be almost my rage trade of the week. He looks really, really sluggish. I don't know what it is with him. He just looks like he's in second gear the whole time, and he's also the number one tag threat. Yes, he got a 96, which is not the end of the world, but I'd expect a lot more from Anderson in the coming weeks. Otherwise, he could be on the chopping block. But if you flip to my side before we get your thoughts, Nathan, Butters, consistent. Ed Richards is another one that is stupidly frustrating to own at the moment, considering he went gangbusters, and he was the reason. So for me, this is my personal team. I had Bontempelli all preseason. Get rid of him, get Richards in, save 100k, bump up someone like a Worrell to a Clark, and all of a sudden I would have got a lot more points if I stuck with the Bontempelli Josh Worrell pick. So that's definitely hurts. Connor Rozee, he has to go. Look, I'm looking at doing some DPP action and bringing Tristan Cherry into my flex. So I think that's where I'll get the money from through some rookie trades. Parrish, again, frustrating as anything, but other than that, the rest were on the buy bar the rookies. My question to you is, Nathan, I think this is a genuine conversation to have in general with the midfield, because at the moment there's not really any worries there. I wouldn't trade out, your likes of Richards and Noah Anderson and those that are not quite hitting it. We all know what they're capable of and what they're, Richards was able to get 20 or 30 points in about 10 minutes to save his scores. We all know they're capable of trading them. I would highly recommend not side swapping, as Nathan probably cruelly found out. Even though Goulden was injured, he brought in Sarong, which everyone thought would do well, and he cops a 78 tag game. So, you got to be careful with side swapping too many of these premiums in out, unless you genuinely think you've made a mistake. They're always going to come good. They're never going to score 130 for you each week. But my question to you, Nathan, is obviously you've watched a bit of footy in the last 3 weeks. What are your thoughts on these rule changes? And obviously this ties back into the hamstring situation about these injuries happening, yes, to older players, but how does this impact the midfielding scoring potential? Because I'm just going to give you an example. You look at someone like a Max Holmes who went gangbusters first round, to someone like an Ed Richards who is more, that kind of classic in and under grunt midfield, a bit slower. does all the contested stuff. Do you reckon this new scoring kind of vibe or the new rules favour the run and gun midfielders, or do you think this is more a blip in the radar for a scoring that's not going to really impact it? And how does that link, obviously, to the hamstring situation that we have at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly get up my if I can find it. I don't know where it's gone now. Oh, here it is. So I just want to sort of put this on the radar now. So last year, the league average for scoring was 84.3 points a game. So basically, what I'm saying there is that each game, on average, there are 84 points scored per side. All right. So that was actually a little bit down on 2024 and sort of a point up on 2023. This year so far across 3 rounds, that average is 95 points a game. So that is a huge swing. I mean, that's nearly 2 goals more a game already, and we're 3 rounds in. Now, is this sustainable? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it will come back down to sort of that, maybe not as low as 84.3, but it probably will come back down to sort of the high 80s by the end of the season. So yes, I definitely think that these rules are having a massive impact on fitness, on injury prevention, because players are now running a lot more up and down the ground. And obviously, as we know, when you run a lot, soft tissue injuries can, be more frequent. So, yes, I think these new rule changes are having a massive impact on these injuries. And I guess we're seeing that now. I think coaches are now putting a lot more bodies through the midfield. I think the days, at least at the minute, it seems like the days of the 100% midfielders are gone. I just don't think the way the game is right now that you can play 100% midfield and run out the game. So I think this is where flexibility comes into, thing. I think this is what makes Bont such a special player, because not only can he impact in the midfield, but he can go forward and kick goals as well. So, as I said, I always had Bont and Pelly, but yeah, I think that these sort of run and gun players, like the Holmes, the Smith, I think they're the future of the game with the way the AFL wanted to be played, which is more, the ping pong basketball style of game, as opposed to, the dull, low scoring contested game. So, at this stage, I think, unless something drastic changes, I think that 95 scoring profile will maintain for at least the next probably 4 or so weeks. But yeah, I just fear that there's going to be a lot more blowouts this season. I mean, in opening round, we saw, what did we say? I think there were 3 games that was 10 plus goals. Or there was the 2 close games, and then I think the other 3 were sort of, very comfortable, with 2 of them being 10 plus goals. So, as we get deeper into the season, we get into winter, I just think that the good sides are going to belt up on those smaller sides, or, the sides on the bottom of the ladder. I mean, we could genuinely see Sydney West Coast from a couple of years ago, where Sydney, I think they kicked 200 points. Oh, we could genuinely see that on the cards again. If one of these good sides has a really good day and one of the bad sides has a really bad day. So, is this what the AFL want? I don't know, but for SuperCoach, it's definitely frustrating, because, yeah, I think gone are the days of the 100% midfielder. I just don't think it's sustainable anymore.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think there has been a shift from that traditionalist Patrick Cripps. I mean, Bontempelli's probably in a league separately, so you can't really include him. But yeah, like if you look at Ed Richardson and things like that, the traditionalist midfielder probably has a cap in their ceiling of scoring, which is definitely frustrating. I think, yeah, you're looking at that more explosive, gung-ho midfield that just runs throughout the whole day, like your Butters, your Dacos, your Max Holmes, your Bailey Smiths. Yeah, the way they transition the boys way faster, I think that's where your Richardson, Cripps and Steels don't quite catch up. Yes, they're going to score well, I think, but just not as consistently or consistently high enough compared to your Dacos and Butters that it could be an issue. So, look, I'm not trading out Richards. I think he's still going to score quite nicely. He's very capable of scoring in 150s, but I don't think we're going to see, those 140s and 150s as consistently compared to a Max Holmes and things like that. Like even watching that game in parts of it in the last kind of half against Crows, Richards did look sluggish as well, and he looked kind of off the boil with regards to the pace of it all. So yeah, he's one that you got to be careful of when you're picking midfielders. But look, I think most people have got Rozee in the defensive line. If you do have in the midfield, probably Max Holmes, Lockie Neal's an option. He's done really well so far. So I'd say Max Holmes is your number one target, I think, for this week. He's shown he's very, very capable of scoring quite nicely. And I'm pretty sure Cats have a very easy fixture this week. I don't know who.
They got Adelaide in Geelong.
Yeah. Oh, okay, maybe not. So maybe take that back. But
Adelaide haven't won there in about 15 years, I don't think.
And I think they're missing Dawson and Laird.
And Dawson's out,
out. So I think Holmes would go quite large in this one as well. But moving on to the ruck line, look, there wasn't much to talk about there. McAndrew's been really, really solid. I really like the way he's rucking at the moment. He's bloody tall and does a lot of hit outs to advantage. Actually looks quite composed around the ground. So yeah, if you have him, no dramas there. Luke Jackson, this is a community side. Again, looked really impressive and has got the Tigers this week, and Tigers just lost Nankervis for a month. So he's one that's going to go gangbusters, I think. Having said that, he was under a slight injury cloud. I think he's all good to go, but just keep a watch whether they do a dual ruck setup with Mason Cox doing more ruck time as well. I could see if there is any injury doubt to Jackson to play Jackson more up forward, which could impact his scoring. Having said that, knowing how Freo go, I could see Jackson still scoring quite well. Having said that, I would say, would you pick Cherry over Jackson? I think yes. This week in particular, I think Jackson, I don't think he's that desperate to get. Yes, he's playing Richmond, but having said that, it's not a big deal. But Sherry, we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but he's just capable with some monster scores. And I think that's a big problem. If you don't have him, I think this whole ruck rule situation is really negated by Gawn and Sherry going in particular. So yeah, I don't think it's much about your athletic profile anymore. It's still, how they've always scored. I don't think it's made a huge impact anyway. But moving on to my own team, I've got Team English in that spot. I mean, there's English and Sherry are pretty much scoring similar there. But what are your thoughts, Nathan? I know you've got 2 premium rucks, I'm pretty sure.
I've got Luke Jackson, who's I said this at the start of the season, and I'll say it again. I think he genuinely could be the number 1 ruckman at the end of the year. There's nothing in my eyes that have persuaded me to not believe that. Viewpoint. The other one I've got is Tom Decoding, who is terribly, terribly frustrating at the minute. So I went the left of field pick here with the ruckman to go for Decoding, and I think he's been very. I don't actually think he's playing too bad, Thomas. You'd probably know this better, but I actually don't think he's playing too badly for St Kilda. I just think, I just think the way that the score is. So if I quickly get up the, stats, if I quickly just get up the stats here. So in terms of hit outs, so obviously we know hit outs to advantage are, rewarded with King. So far, St Kilda are ranked 16th for hit outs to advantage. So, I don't think that's a great start for Luke Jackson, unfortunately. I think I've got to stick with him for this week, even though I'd love to move him on, just because of the carnage everywhere else. But yes, it is terribly, terribly frustrating. Just watching Luke, Tom Decoding just get, look good on the field, and then he gets 45. So I don't know what else to do. I mean, I thought he'd do well against the Giants, but yeah, I don't know what happened there with the Giants. So look, it is what it is. You'll have to yeah, you'll have to probably keep him, but yeah, it's terribly frustrating with the conning. I wish I kept Tristan Cherry or Tim English now, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think we all make mistakes. I think I've probably made a mistake there by reading too much into these new ruck rules. But yeah, I'll give him time. He's at a new club. Quite often we see players struggle at their new clubs initially, and then they come out sort of later on in the year and get going again. So I'm not giving up on him, but yes, it's terribly frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, as a Saints supporter, I'll probably have a bit more screen time with watching TDK play. Look, I don't know what's exactly wrong with his scoring. Look, he's not scoring absolutely shit to bed, but was not impressive, I think, scoring wise. He definitely, as a St Kilda supporter, yeah, look, I'd say he's definitely helped our team 110% with hit outs to advantage. Looks a way more better tap ruckman than Marshall. Yes, Marshall's impact rucking as well is going to affect De Conning, which is, I think, the biggest issue here. Having said that, here I'm just looking at the stats. So Marshall had 7 hit outs, De Conning had 27. Having said that, if you look at his AFL fantasy and SuperCoach split, De Conning scored 90 AFL fantasy, 45 SuperCoach. This is where the efficiency really hurts. I believe he had super low efficiency, a lot of turnovers. Had 21 disposals, 27 hit-outs, and 3 behinds. If you look at that on paper, that's an easy 100-plus game. I believe he had a stupidly low efficiency game, so there's one to be wary of, and I think a lot of his possessions were direct turnovers. Again, having said that, it was in Western Sydney where they had basically not torrential rain, but rain and lightning as well, so it delayed the game and all that sort of stuff, so that would have had an impact a little bit, but yeah. I'd be definitely frustrated if I was a De Conning owner, because he's very
De Conning's just to interrupt.
Yeah.
De Conning's disposal efficiency was 19%.
Yeah, that
from
basically.
21 disposals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Basically from 21 disposals, 4 of them were effective. So yeah, that hurts a lot. Sorry to butt in there, but yeah, that doesn't help his scoring. When you have 4 effective disposals from 21 disposals, that never helps.
Yeah, exactly right. So, look, I think you got to take that out of the equation a little bit when you're looking at that and not thinking, oh, it's a terrible score just because he's played badly. He's played actually quite nicely, I think, albeit the price tag that everyone keeps banging on about. But yeah, I wouldn't stress too much. He'd be a bit of a concern if he's pumping at them out consistently. But hopefully that's a bit of a blip in the radar with regards to efficiency. And it was a terrible weather game to be part of with regards to trying to play clean weather footy there. But yeah, I think the big conversation this week is around Sherry. If you're talking about rucks, I'm using the Petracca Rozee trade to get up there. But I think he's almost a number 1 trade target. Look, Jackson, I could feel, yes, he's playing Richmond and they have no recognised rucks. So he's going to go well there, but I think Sherry, he's playing Blackiston as well against Essendon, and Essendon have been terrible in the last 2 weeks, and I could see Sherry genuinely scoring 200 again, and he's very capable of doing so. That's a scary thing if you don't own him. I think we're not saying, 60s and 70s, we're seeing probably low hundreds for these ruckmen if they don't do too well, but I think this new ruck rule's gotten in everyone's head. I think if you went Gordon Sherry like most years, you wouldn't have a problem and be scoring very, very nicely. But yeah, I'd say Sherry's almost your number 1 pick for this week. But with regards to the forward line, move on before we wrap it up for this week. Harry Sheasel is going from strength to strength in that midfield group. Yes, West Coast, North butchered a chance against West Coast and really should have won that game until West Coast got the better of them. But Sheasel seems to have flourished in a midfield role. And look, we're going to see the best of him. I think there was doubts maybe on how he'd go. But yeah, if you don't have him, you've got to pick him up if you've been silly enough to not start him. Flanders, yeah, I do agree with Nathan. I think he's flourished a lot with regards to his ability to improve in that midfield. Yes, 81's not amazing, but you've also got to remember he started at under 400k. So as that mid-pricer, and he's matched every other mid-pricer, I think he's going to grow in confidence in that midfield group. Like, you look at the midfield at the moment, it's Philippou when he's fit, Naz, Garcia, Windhager, Flanders. Flanders is almost the most experienced there with regards to pure midfield role. So, yeah, it's going to take a bit of time to gel, but once we do, and he can clean up his efficiency a little bit, we're going to probably see the best of Flanders. Sammy Laylor, this was a bit of a unique in the community when I did do that. Look, he's scoring 70s at the moment. They got battered on the weekend. So, look, we're not probably going to trade him out this week, but he's one that I can't see a ceiling maximising. And again, just make a bit of money and pump and dump and get a premium in. Budarick is annoying. I don't know if you've got him as well, Nathan, but Budarick.
No, I don't.
He's one that I think sucked a few people in with regards to his role because Bailey Dale wasn't there in that game. He's been okay, don't get me wrong, but I think he's averaging the same as those rookie defenders. So again, he's one that's not going to score too poorly based off his role alone, but he's not taking those kickouts, which was the big plus with him in the preseason. So I think if you can get rid of him, get rid of him. But there are not that many rookies as well. So he's not a huge issue, but I'd rather trade him sooner rather than later. I think with just the potential that these scores are going to linger around the 60 and 70 sooner. Sooner rather than later. And then finish off the line. Yeah, Dev Robertson should be in everyone's side. If you don't have him, grab him before his price wise. He's actually looks really impressive for the Eagles and it could be a big reason why they do well. Todd Marshall, consistent as always. I think that defensive role really suits him. As a SuperCoach scorer, you can't be any happier with how he's going. Look, there were some doubts with how he was scoring was potentially going to go, but yeah, he seems to be playing that +1 floater intercept mark role and distributing pretty well. So 70s to 80s, you'd definitely be happy with that. Philippou, his 42 comes with a caveat. That 42 was on significantly low game time. I only realised after the game he only played probably less than 50% game time. So yeah, 42 for that's not too bad. He did kick a very early goal and then skyrocketed about 20 before quarter time. So that slightly affected it. But look, he probably quickly turns from a trade to a not trade. He's going to stay in the side, I think. And if they increase his minutes, hopefully we're going to see those 70s and 80s again. Like I've said to a few people in our DMs, Philippou just seems one that probably was a bit suckered into the price tag or the cheap price tag in preseason. I think he's one player that doesn't score too well in SuperCoach and he's very much an impactful player, hasn't quite got the possessions in the mid-game sorted. But he's one that, is going to be consistent on field anyway. Petracca's injured, we'll talk about him in a minute. And then Leo Lombard just looked absolutely dreadful in a game that they bashed up on. So he's one that's almost a definite trade out next week. But what are your thoughts on Petracca? Obviously, there was merit to potentially hold him if he was 2 to 3 weeks, Nathan, but now it's probably 4 to 6. He's obviously a trade out. I talked about, my team, I'm personally getting in Tristan Cherry off that trade and getting some rookies down. But what are your thoughts on Petracca? Because there doesn't overly seem many options in the forward line as genuine options. I'm just going to bring them up here, but it seems like all the value is elsewhere. So it almost seems like if you can flip him to another position, if you have that luxury, then I'd say go do that. But if you're also forced on to picking a forward, who would you pick this week?
Yeah, well, this one is terribly frustrating, Petracca, because I think we all had high hopes for him. I'm just going to get it up on my other screen over here. For some reason, I quit out of the SuperCoach, so sorry about that, everyone. So I think this week, so obviously it's frustrating for owners of Petracca. This is a tricky one because, as I said, I think he genuinely can be a top 6 defender, top 6 forward, at the end of the year by average. So look, you've got to move him on. I think if you haven't got Harry Sheezel, I think this is just the easiest lay down Mazet trade. Just trade him out for Harry Sheezel, and thanks for the thanks for the first couple of weeks. But if you already got Harry Sheezel, I don't know what to really do with him. This is a great little problem here. So, I'm just getting up the forwards now. So, we've got a lot of players I'm not really sure about, their long-term prospects. So, Isaac Rankin, I'm not sure about. Riley Philthorpe, don't pick key forwards. Myers, no. Kasai Pickett, I think it's been disappointing for those of you who did pick him up. There was a great thing on First Crack on Sunday night about Melbourne not using him. So I think that's a bit of a red flag. I'd be very wary of Justin McInerney, especially now that Gordon's out. Darcy, don't know about Darcy. I think he probably sucked in a lot of people. Jeremy Cameron's the interesting one. I normally don't pick key forwards, but I think Jeremy is an exception because I think he can get up the ground a little bit. But outside of that, I'm not really sure if there's any sort of premiums that are setting the world on fire. I know Shea Bolton scored 142 last week, but I will probably avoid him just because I think he can get slumped in the forward line a little bit. Outside of that, the only other one that I think is catching people's eyes, I'm sure Thomas is probably trying to keep him under wraps, but Max Hall actually is looking quite a good SuperCoach player. So I think since midway through last year, I think on the champion data player ratings, I think only Bont and Ed Richards are rating higher than Max Hall. So, for someone of that caliber to only be in 2.9% of teams, if there's a point of difference that you want, I think jumping on a Thomas's man in Max Hall, I think is a good shout. I know he scored 60. I know he scored 60 last week, but if you take that out, his other two scores this year have been 141 and a very up and down game, which probably suited him, and 79. And then even last year, after round 16, he went 120, 144, 89, 77, 102, 66, 90, 82, 73. So I guess the problem is I don't think you're going to find anyone like Petracca in terms of who you're going to bring in. So, I think if you haven't got Harry Sheasel, it's the easiest trade in the world. If you do, perhaps if you can work it out, I don't mind the Tristan Cherry one or another midfielder. But, I think it's just really hard because I think most people were banking on Petracca being a keeper and he's probably not going to be one unless you want to trade him back in 6 to 8 weeks' time when he's back.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think, definitely trade him. I don't think there's any merit in keeping him. With regard to Petracca in particular, like 4 to 6 weeks is a definite trade out. 1 to 3, you'd hold. 3 to 4, debatable. But 4 to 6 definitely. The options that you have, look, to be honest, there's not too many forward options, as Nath said, with regards to Petracca. And the forward options, look, to be honest, there's, Max Hall, I'd say. He scored 140 and then dropped to 60, so he's very up and down. I'm not sure how Isaac Rankin did. I don't think he did too well off his first.
No, he only got 70 odd.
Yeah, so he's one you could probably wait on. I wouldn't bother with him. Harvey Thomas is one that's interesting from the Giants. These Giants kind of small forward seems to be doing pretty well in their transition game. 84, 71, 109. Look, he's an option if you want to go down. I probably wouldn't go there just with their bye coming up next week. So I think your only option is it to DPP if you can. If you're forced to pick a forward, then probably I'd almost recommend Max Hall, but he does have that bye coming up next week. Look, there's not so many options, to be honest, because the good ones have their bye. Joel Fraser's his bye. He would have been an option. Toby Green, Darcy Wilson. Yeah, there's definitely... Shai Bolton, actually. Scrap that. Shai Bolton would be a good option, I think, particularly with Hayden Young out. I think it looks like he's going to get more CBA attendances. Looked really impressive against the Ds. He always lights it up at some point, plays... that brand of footy that is very susceptible to those 140s and 150s. But he's always up and down as well. I owned him last season as well when I bought him cheap and didn't get much cheaper after that because he just didn't do too nicely. But Shai Bolton would be probably my pick of the bunch than Max Hall if you want. But I'd say if you're looking at flipping DPP swings, I'd be looking at one of the defenders as we talked about beforehand, or Tristan Cherry. He's definitely my option, or Luke Jackson if you can't afford Tristan Cherry. But that's all we got time for today. Just before we wrap it up, I think we're looking at VCs and Cs very briefly. We'll put up a post on Twitter about it. But Yeah, look, Max Holmes against the Crows is a VC. Dacos is a VC if he doesn't get tagged. Sinclair against the Lions is an option, as all VC options. Then you get Freo Tigers, definitely Luke Jackson's a VC, or Tristan Sherry in the evening game. As you said, we got this, as we said with the early season buys, we have that benefit of being able to pick basically whatever VC we want that isn't a Sunday game. So mine is going into North and Butters. Sorry, not North. Sherry and Butters. Who are you picking as VC and C? Very quickly.
I will be picking, I think, Nick Dacos.
Yep.
Although, would it be ballsy to put the vice captaincy on McAndrew and hope he goes gangbusters against Geelong? Is that a genuine consideration?
Could be. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have the balls to do it because there's so many good other options. But yeah, against probably Mitch Edwards, I could see McAndrew doing very nicely. But having said that,
otherwise, because of the way the buys are structured, you can pretty much put it on anyone. I think mine will be going on Luke Jackson. I think first up, I think having a look at that Richmond lineup, I think they're very decimated in the rucks. So yeah, I think Luke Jackson will get it for me unless there's someone else from one of the earlier games that I like. But yeah, I think at this stage it will probably be Luke Jackson.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think there's definitely a few good options to go for this week. But that's all we got time for today. Hopefully, yeah. I think, as I mentioned on Twitter earlier at the end of the round 2, I think this could be a big week for super coaches. It could not make or break a season, but definitely put a dent in it if you go wrong with this trade, and hopefully you can kind of play it safe and get the right option. But other than that, hopefully have a good week, and we'll catch you for the end of round 3.